In this WrestleTalk news, Young Bucks vs FTR was seemingly never the plan, Road Dogg may be on his way to AEW, my review of SmackDown, Tempest review of Rampage, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
Fans were shocked when watching AEW Dynamite this week as Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee won the AEW World Tag titles from the Young Bucks, in a result that basically nobody saw coming. The main reason for this is most likely because a large portion of the audience assumed that we were heading for a Young Bucks vs FTR match, potentially at All Out, where the AEW, IWGP, AAA, and Ring of Honor tag titles would all be on the line. I mean, it makes the most sense to me. AEW were even teasing that the Bucks were dodging FTR, but then they've dropped the tag belts now, so I guess that's not in the works after all. Dave Meltzer had some interesting pointers about this in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, where he outlined why the Bucks were able to drop the belts. Even though fans clearly wanted FTR versus Young Bucks with all 4 tag titles at stake, as noted by the impromptu reaction last week, that was not the plan, at least for now. But there was a different major angle planned for the Young Bucks soon. Obviously, Young Bucks and Kenny Omega versus Adam Cole and Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly was a direction, and AEW was going to introduce trios titles when Omega was healthy, but with Omega and Cole both out of action, no word on how close that would be. So it seems TK had some other plans for the Bucks that aren't arguably the biggest tag match AEW have ever put on for 4 promotions tag belts at the same time between the 2 best tag teams in the world right now. I guess those plans better be good. Maybe the Bucks will be joining the Ass Boys and Billy Gunn, as they may be recruiting right now. With Billy Gunn's heartbreaking betrayal of the acclaimed RIP Sesame Daddy Ass, Gunn has realigned himself with his sons, but he may also be realigning himself with his former New Age Outlaw tag partner, Road Dogg. At an autograph signing at KNS WrestleFest, a fan asked Gunn whether he could see Road Dogg joining AEW before long, to which Gunn replied, "We're trying to get him here," hinting that they are actively pursuing him. Road Dogg was released from his WWE contract in January this year, during WWE's grand overhaul of the NXT brand and how it functions, where he worked as an instructor on in-ring promos and character development at the Performance Center. Whether he'd be actually up for wrestling, or could just become another wrestling manager for the Ass Boys, who knows, but I can't wait for them to reunite and do their catchphrases, which haven't aged well. On the subject of NXT though, Triple H recently held a meeting at the Performance Center where he announced that he was back, which many fans assumed meant that he was back in his role as head of creative in NXT, as he'd already been back to his corporate position for a few months. Apparently, this is not the case, as according to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, Triple H has not been doing anything direct with NXT. He's just been doing his office job. NXT is still run by Shawn Michaels in his absence. Ah well, we'll always have Cora Jade's heel turn to make us feel better. Have you seen the Peacock edited version of it? It's a thing of beauty. Honestly, go and find the GIF online. I promise it's worth it. They legitimately edited out the skateboard, it just vanishes and then it reappears. It's magic. And now it's time for my review of SmackDown in about 5 minutes. Thank you for being awesome pledge hammers on our Patreon page. He can last Sean for longer than you in the ring, and Starbucks Stephen Costa. You can get your own shout out and loads of extra bonus content by visiting us at patreon.com/WrestleTalk. The show began with Michael Cole, who introduced Pat McAfee, allowing Pat to cut a promo on his SummerSlam opponent, Happy Corbin. He sure did say some words, that's for sure. Did you know that he is in fact going to win at SummerSlam, and he said he's going to beat up bum-ass Corbin? Ha, I never would have guessed it. Pat McAfee then introduced Liv Morgan, who was facing Natalya in a championship contenders match. Well, that makes perfect sense after Natalya lost decisively, getting squashed by Ronda Rousey last week. The match was actually pretty decent though, a tad botchy in places, but overall, pretty solid stuff. Liv Morgan won with the Oblivion, and Natalya actually sold the finish this time. Kayla Braxton then continued her streak of being the worst journalist in WWE, saying, "Congratulations, Liv, but I couldn't help but noticed that you didn't win as quickly as Ronda. Did you want to expand on why you suck?" Jesus, Kayla. Liv said some stuff about how she was going to win at SummerSlam. Theory and Paul Heyman had a fun little interaction backstage where Paul Heyman tried to convince Theory not to cash in because it would be much more lucrative for him if he has a scheduled match with Roman Reigns instead. But Theory continued saying he's going to cash in at SummerSlam. The New Day then came out dressed as the Viking Raiders. They've had such a good track record of segments where they dress up based off their opponents. I'm shocked this didn't work. I'm not sure where the joke is here. Is the joke that they dressed like them? Because that isn't a joke, it's just not funny? This is a weird tone shift in this feud as well, where the New Day came out and said they need to get vicious and serious, and then they got their asses kicked last week, so this week they don't take them seriously and dress up like them? The Raiders then came out and I shit you not, Ivar's promo was him saying, "We are new and vicious." I can't with this company. "We are new and vicious. We are going to tell you things that you could infer from our actions because all of our scriptwriters have no idea what subtext is." They come to the ring and Jinder Mahal and Shanky were lying in wait and attack them on the ramp. They stand tall and they all dance in the ring except Mahal, who looks like he's considering it. What a story. Walter backstage once again says that losing isn't an option and again chops Ludwig Kaiser, which I'm less keen on than last week. I think it works better if he just attacks him after he loses, and on this occasion, he's already had his discipline. Continuing to reference and do it leads me to believe that these two are more destined to be split up, which I'm not sold on at all right now. Lacey Evans was supposed to face Aaliyah, but instead cut basically the same promo from last week and then walked out. We then were told we were getting the match that was supposed to happen last week of Drew McIntyre versus Sheamus. Winner faces the champion at Clash at the Castle, though I don't know why we'd believe it's actually happening this week. And wouldn't you know it, it didn't. But in the weirdest way. So the ring announcer instead introduced Ridge Holland, not Sheamus. And the commentators were saying, "Whoa, no one knows what's happening, what's going on here." And apparently Sheamus didn't know either because he was looking confused. And then Butch went out of the ring and got the ring bell and rang it while Holland was in the ring, which I guess makes the match of the two people that happen to be standing in the ring official, despite it already being official because that's what the ring announcer said. And then Sheamus solved this like, "Oh, what are you doing, Butch? You crazy, out of control man." And then the commentators kept saying, "Oh man, Sheamus, you have to fight Drew sometime. You gotta stop dodging him." Like he'd orchestrated this, but he was continuing to sell it like he didn't know what was happening and then Drew beat up Ridge Holland and won. My brain hurts. Paul Heyman did a promo to Madcap Moss backstage, the same promo in fact that he did to Theory, trying to get Moss to injure Theory so he couldn't cash in at SummerSlam, and I really like this too. It puts over how nervous Heyman is of the threat of Theory cashing in, and that makes a lot of sense. Though of course Madcap Moss did have to say that, "You're scared of Theory cashing in," because again, subtext. Next week, Maximum Male Models is debuting Maxine Dupree, who I assume isn't male, though the name did make me laugh. Theory versus Madcap Moss was a match that was far better than I thought it would be, but of course it ended in a DQ because WWE doesn't know how to end matches. Moss was announced as the winner, but immediately after, Theory says, "No one cares because I'm still Mr. Money in the Bank." And yeah, you're right, wins and losses don't matter, which makes the entire match we just watched pointless. Sami Zayn came out to say Theory was disrespecting the Tribal Chief, and then he was backed up by the Usos, so Zayn is actually a member of the Bloodline now? This led nicely into the main event of Jimmy Uso versus Angelo Dawkins, which was a quick, but also quite fun match. There was a solid looking ref bump in this, which led to both Dawkins and Jimmy getting a visual pin, but then the ref was roused just enough to count the 3 after Dawkins hit the sky high on Jimmy. But Jimmy's shoulder was up, which the ref missed because he was still dazed from the bump. This was honestly a very well booked finish, an intentional schmoz that didn't overstay its welcome and hit all the right bits that it needed to. Adam Pearce then announced who the special guest referee was going to be for SummerSlam in the Usos vs Street Profits rematch, and it's Jeff Jarrett, who got a video package rather than entering himself. That well-known tag team specialist, Jeff Jarrett. That's an odd choice. And because WWE didn't want to end the show on the reaction of, huh? Street Profits and Usos then brawled as they went off the air. This show was better than it has been in the last few weeks. There was actually some wrestling on this episode, which is a nice change. But also, quick sidebar to talk about how many recaps there were. I'm not including instant replays here. I'm talking recaps from previous weeks and video packages. Let's total it up, because I haven't mentioned any of them that were on this show so far. So we started with Happy Corbin attacking Pat McAfee from Money in the Bank and Corbin's commentary from last week, that was 45 seconds. Then we had an advert for Reigns versus Lesnar at SummerSlam, that was 30 seconds. Then an advert for Logan Paul versus The Miz, that was 30 seconds. A recap of the New Day and the Viking Raiders from last week, that was 40 seconds. A recap of Walter and Ludwig Kaiser from last week, that was 30 seconds. Then a recap of Lacey Evans' promo from last week, that was 1 minute and 40 seconds. Then a recap of Drew McIntyre versus Butch from last week, that was 1 minute. An advert for SummerSlam, that was 1 minute. A recap of Brock Lesnar on Raw, that was 2 minutes and 55 seconds. A recap of Maximum Male Models that went 1 minute and 25 seconds. And the video package announcing Jeff Jarrett was 55 seconds, which brings us to a grand total of 11 minutes and 50 seconds just spent on recaps from previous weeks or video packages. In other words, too long. Despite this though, there was some good wrestling on this show. That's a nice change. I might even go so far as to say this episode was a 3 out of 5. That might be being slightly generous, but I'm sticking with it. And now over to Tempest for Rampage.
This show kicked off with our opening tag match already in the ring as Alex Reynolds and Johnny Hungy took on the Kings of the Black Throne. All around, this was a superbly wrestled opener. This comes on the back of Brody King eliminating Hangman Page from the Royal Rampage. However, the Cowboy never got involved in this match. Rather, John Silver was the highlight of the team, go figure, matching strength with Brody King. Malachi Black cleared 3/4 of the ring to break up the Dark Order's best chance at winning, as Johnny Hungy ate a black mass and Brody nailed Alex Reynolds with Dante's Inferno for the win. After the match, Darby Allin leapt off the entrance tunnel to take out Brody King, and they brawled into the crowd as Sting came face to face with Malachi. This should make for a very excellent tag match at some point in the near future, and what a great way to open up the show this was. 5 out of 5. We then got another promo from Miro where he asked God if they sent him a devil. He doesn't know if he was sent the House of Black to fight them or be recruited by them, and it was at this point that I hope that the House of Black is holding an open house in the near future, because between Miro, Darby, Sting, possibly Hangman, they've got their hands full at the moment. Caprice Coleman joined commentary for the ROH World Championship match, and I thought he really added to the story here, explaining that Jonathan Gresham had a long reign as pure champion, and he wasn't used to getting struck as a result, and thus had a weakness that Lee Moriarty could and would exploit. They had another very strong match, and while this wasn't the match to send Moriarty into the stratosphere, I thought this might have been the best he's looked in AEW so far. Gresham was able to beat him with the octopus hold and said he was the best hold-for-hold wrestler in the world and would be on AEW every single week beating our favorites. Sounds lovely to me. He was then interrupted by Claudio Castagnoli, and we were wondering if they would have a bigger match set for Death Before Dishonor, and yeah, this would certainly qualify. 4 out of 5. Christopher Daniels cut a promo on behalf of Samoa Joe, and I would love to know why we don't see Daniels more often. Love that man. Athena and Chris Statlander beat the Renegade Twins in one of the shortest matches in Rampage history, and I stand here once again asking to actually let us watch these women wrestle, please. Only 28 seconds this one. Layla Gray tried to hit the ring, but Jade Cargill and Kiera Hogan were the ones to lay out Athena and Chris Stat. This was really by the books, and I was hoping for a lot more. 2 out of 5. Stokely Hathaway tried to recruit Lee Moriarty, and Matt Sydal set up Lee versus Dante Martin for next week. The Ass Club were in the ring, and they said nothing of note really before the Acclaimed interrupted and rejected Billy's offer of a scissoring. The Acclaimed cleared the ring, and Max Caster said Billy had a little dick. The Acclaimed are gonna make a great babyface team, but that's really all I got out of this one. 3 out of 5. Excalibur doesn't get paid nearly enough for his ad reads, and then we got our main event of Private Party versus the Lucha Brothers. Private Party looked hot early, and Rey Fenix had a pretty great shine sequence, but Penta badly messed up his hot tag. The fans weren't very forgiving of this, unfortunately, and then we had a completely unnecessary and very messy run-in from Rush that led to absolutely nothing as Penta immediately hit a destroyer within seconds of Rush hitting him. Phoenix got the win for his team, but this match was a classic example of overthinking things when they were probably tight on time. I seem to recall the Lucha Brothers and Private Party's match in the inaugural AEW Tag Title Tournament being very messy as well, and that may just be coincidental, but these two teams might not be the best fit for each other. But then again, maybe I'm wrong and they'll crush it the next time out, and I hope they do. In the meantime, this was a fairly weak main event that will get a 3 out of 5 on a show that started fantastic but finished with a wet fart. I gotta give this show a 3 out of 5, but the first half of this show was definitely worth going out of your way to see.
In this WrestleTalk news, was the AEW Tag Team title win on Wednesday invalid? WWE Raw is becoming TV-14 rated again, but not right now, and loads more.